Hello, and welcome to another fully live news and hacking tools episode of Hacking with Friends. My name is Kody KIlian, and today marks the triumphant return of KIlian. Thank you for joining us.
It's great to be back. It's been too long. I feel like it's been a whole month maybe. It's time has really flown by, and I don't even know how we're in January, much less the end of it.
I know. So where was the sales kickoff conference again?
So we were in Midtown New York in Manhattan. So
fancy.
it was a triumphant return for the company too. It marked the 10-year anniversary of us going public, of Vrone's going public. So it was an interesting kind of full circle to bring it back to New York, especially after, years of being in COVID lockdown and not having them in person, and also being in various places. We had been in various different locations over the years. So bringing it full circle back to mark that anniversary of the going public of the company.
Yeah, no, that was pretty crazy to see. Like a lot of people, I mean, I've been here for about 4 years now, but a lot of people have been here for like the whole ride, and seeing that transformation happen has been pretty crazy. I didn't get to go. I was still recovering from the whole Germany, Europe trip, and there were so many people there. It looked like a crazy production. So good to have you back. And to that person who asked, is this pre-recorded? I brought the comment up on the screen and slowly shook my head. I hope you understood, but no, this is not pre-recorded. This is live. And also, Rodrigo says, I'm finally on time for once. No, we're just like an hour and a half late. We're fine. In fact, I prefer doing this a little bit later in the day when people might be, either off work or about to get off work. So welcome everyone to our new completely random time. It's good to see you all. And we have a lot of stuff to go over. I had 2 guests on, KIlian, since you've been gone. One of them made a very interesting Bluetooth both attack and attack hunter tool. So you were able to detect people that were using a Flipper Zero to do that Bluetooth spamming attack. Very, very cool. And then earlier this week, we had Angelina on, and she was showing us how we could use basically large language models for all sorts of interesting cybersecurity tasks. So I wanted to show off one of them that was, in my opinion, the coolest. Oh, let me get your comment off screen. Sorry, I didn't mean to put my glass. So let's see, where is it? Here it is. It's called Payload Wizard. So Angelina was showing this off last time, but my OpenAI key wasn't working. I'm gonna hide you, chat. I'm sorry. I'm not threatened by you. I'm not ashamed of you. I just want to show this off. So Payload Wizard is a tool that allows you to plug in your OpenAPI key and have some prompt engineering done for you. So there's 2 different things that Angelina built here. And I just want to say, if you are somebody who's interested in building these AI tools, this is something that is not super difficult to learn about. Angelina is actually teaching a class, hint, hint, this weekend, literally tomorrow. So if you see this and you think it's cool, you want to learn to build your own, or you want to learn more of these sorts of tools, then check out the class tomorrow. Do I have it up? I hope I do. Yes, you can check out this meetup event because this is the person that made it. Online AI for cybersecurity workshop. Check it out. It's on the meetup page. You can find it Cyber Weapons Lab LA, and Angelina is going to do an amazing job. And it's an online class. So usually these are in person. She's going to be doing this online. So as many people can join as you want. So, okay, anyway, back to Payload Wizard. So what does this do? Well, you put in your OpenAI key. You can select a model. I'll select ChatGPT 4 because I'm fancy. And then you can put a payload in here. And this is good for something like a Ducky script payload that you find, or even like a Python payload, or in this case, a Bash payload. So I, a long time ago, made this payload that I'm very, very proud of. And this is for a bad USB class where I'm teaching people about advanced payloads you can do to inject a process or something into someone's computer. So this was my crown jewel payload. And basically, what this payload does, is, as is notated up here, is it opens up a terminal window, and then it inputs this command that, let's see, what does it do exactly? It sends a web request with the result of a Wi-Fi scan to a particular link. And what this does is it actually exfiltrates all the nearby Wi-Fi networks that are in proximity to the device that we're interested in. So this will give us the approximate location of that device because we can use those Wi-Fi networks to figure out where it is. So this is a pretty sneaky payload. I'm proud of it, but it's not super easy for people who don't understand Bash to know what this is doing. So if I take just this payload and I paste it into the payload wizard, in theory, what this should be doing is decoding this payload and telling me what it does. So let's see. I've already put it right here. This is the payload. I'm gonna click on interpret payload. And hopefully what it's gonna do is tell me what this payload means, like what's behind it, what it's doing. And of course, now that I'm doing this demo, oh, here we go. All right, this is a command line script that is intended to be run on a Unix operating system. It uses several different utilities to perform a specific tasks. Yep, so it's using the digi keyboard.print to use a digispark in order to execute this. That's correct. It's a command that uses the curl utility to send an HTTP request. That's correct. The -- silent suppresses the progress meter and error messages. The -- output /dev /null discards the output of the command. So if you don't do this, then the command outputs a bunch of stuff to the terminal, which is, it looks pretty suspicious. So that is an option that basically silences the command. The -- refer option sets the HTTP refer heading to the string that follows. So basically we're using the refer header to smuggle out data. So then over here, this command is a substitution that runs several commands and uses their output as the refer. So in this case, it's scanning for wireless networks. It filters the output to lines containing WLAN 0, so just the information that is related to the wireless network. It deletes the first line of the output, converts the output to a single line, removes all the spaces from the output, and then removes all the hyphens. And that's just to clean up the data and make sure that when we send it as a web request, there's nothing that'll like accidentally terminate it. And then finally, there's this exfiltration link. And that's where all the data is going. So what did this do? The payload wizard was able to take this kind of like dense, confusing string and basically identify it as a tool that is exfiltrating Wi-Fi information to this link. So in my opinion, if you have a command, whether it's a Python payload or a bash command or something, and you don't know what it does, this is a pretty useful tool for being able to identify like what the heck it's doing and like, you know, like be able to tell what each stage is doing. And I have to say, I built this payload and this is exactly correct. That is why I did these commands. I was like stripping out things and cleaning up the data. So this is just a useful application for cybersecurity purposes of decoding a payload. But what about encoding a payload? So the other tool in this set is the payload generator. So for this, let's say that we want to make a payload, well, for Mac OS that opens the calculator. Wow, I misspelled that. How? Sorry, it's very small on the screen. I can see via the terminal window. The payload is in Ducky script, for example. So I'm going to click generate payload, and it seems like it runs a little bit slower if I'm using the GPT-4. I guess I should expect that as it's thinking harder or whatnot, getting hotter. Let's see. And it ignored me. It's like, okay, Ducky script is a simple program. However, Python is not capable of directly interpreting. Okay, no.
You have to pick Python at the top, I think, Kody.
Oh, you're right. Okay. So let's see.
There it is.
Thank you.
I was going to say, this looks fantastic because every once in a while I'll write like, I'll write a bit of script or I don't know if I see it in here. Hold on.
Sorry, I went pretty fast.
No, that's okay. Like a little like regex that I'll write it and then I'll instantly forget what the heck it does.
Oh yeah, I think see it here.
Yeah, I was gonna say because that's my biggest problem. I've written the same regex code probably like 50 times because I forget what it does instantly.
Okay, yeah, this is really cool. So I thought that the point was to include the type in the prompt, but instead there is a drop down for that. So thank you for noticing. I actually just got this one working. What do you see?
I was gonna say it's got MATLAB. There's an obscure one. I haven't
Yeah.
used that in ages, and I saw assembly at the top. I used to be
Yeah.
able to write assembly really well. I used to.
All right, so let me do a Python script then. So let's see if I can make this kind of malicious. Python stager. Let's see. Write a Python stager for Mac OS that runs persistently. What? Sorry, I cannot see anything I'm doing on the screen. That runs persistently and downloads a base 64 payload from GitHub and then executes it. That's kind of malicious. Let's see if it wants to do that for me.
It's funny that we're talking about this because we here just got our approved the approved generative AI solutions that we're allowed to use as a company. So I spent a lot of my day yesterday trying to get it to come up with malicious code for me for fun. So
okay, so this was just like, I would love to do that for you. This will run persistently on Mac OS by using a launch agent. And then it goes ahead and writes me a stager. So
nice.
okay, so we've got a bunch of questions in the chat, and I want to address them because I've minimized you, but I haven't forgotten about you. So one question is like, what is the value of this? Like, does OpenAI not allow generating payloads? So I kind of explained this in the conversation I had with Angelina. When I ask this to do a security related function, it will argue with me for at least 5 back and forths before it lets me do the thing. So the conversation goes like this. I would like to audit this thing for a security reason. Hacking is not ethical. You should make sure to, okay, I'm a security researcher. Okay, are you working in a lab environment? Yes, I'm working in a lab environment. Okay, are you doing this ethically? Yes, I'm doing this ethically. So this basically completely sweeps away that back and forth conversation where it's going to argue with you by using some prompt engineering to set up something that says, okay, I'm a cybersecurity researcher. We're in a lab environment. This is your role. And it makes it easier to do these cybersecurity specific functions without it basically refusing to do it for you, which is going to come up more and more and more. So that's really the value in this. Like, yes, you can get OpenAI, like ChatGPT to like generate this payload for you. But I think if I gave this prompt to just like regular ChatGPT, it might say no, or say like, you know, like you should always follow ethical guidelines. So I'm not sure. I might do like a blind test of it a little bit later. But yeah, in general, this should make it easier for you to do cybersecurity focused tasks. Another question is, does it require a GPT-4 API key? As far as I know, no, it does not. You can put in the free API key and you should be fine to use GPT-3. I'm using GPT-4, but it really doesn't matter. I can ask the same thing to GPT 3.5 and the answer should be roughly as good. Is it open source? That is a question for Angelina, I believe. However, this website, I think the source is available for it, and it's run on GitHub sites. I believe. Oh no, wait, this is .versal.app. I honestly don't know what this one's running on. So perhaps a question for Angelina when she comes on the show next. I know that the underlying model, of course, is not open source. So also another person comments, this would be great for analyzing malware. I wonder if John Hamm knows about this. Well, Angelina just made this really recently, so it's definitely worth mentioning to him. We're trying to have Angelina come on more like shows and kind of show off her work because she does so much of it and it's so great. So if you want to mention some other YouTubers that they should have her on, she certainly deserves to go on more shows. Okay, so that's about all I have for Payload Wizard. I just wanted to shout this out because I honestly think it's such a cool application of AI. And, you know, some people do get confused about what the value of this would be. But again, like it makes the process so much shorter for these specific tasks. I don't know if KIlian, have you seen these like GPTs that are like specific that you can get through the main like OpenAI like ChatGPT menu now?
I've seen them. I haven't spent much time with them. Just for fun for everybody here too. When we were talking, I just tried to run that exact command that Kody you posted through the built-in Bing GPT implementation, and it yelled at me. It told me no.
Okay, I am wow. Yeah, I'm not surprised by that. So thank you for checking that. So as you can see, yeah, this is probably those specific GPTs are kind of doing something similar. They're lending a lot of context. Maybe they're like getting around some restrictions by explaining like what its function is. So I found some like OSINT specific ones that, for example, you can just give someone's name and it'll go after and try to find all their social media information, whatever, which seems a little invasive. But these models are less hesitant to kind of like go after people's personal data than the standard GPT. So if you haven't checked them out, this is an interesting evolution of how these tools are coming to be better at specific tasks. Kind of funny because they're designed to be a general purpose, you know, like intelligence, but they're kind of looping back to doing specific functions or working in small teams to get things done. So pretty cool. Love to see these tools coming out, and just wanted to give Angelina a shout out for that. So if you're interested in more, definitely check out this online AI for cybersecurity workshop. Angelina has all sorts of interesting and cool perspectives, or maybe just share it with someone who you think would enjoy the class. And again, a big shout out to her for coming on the stream earlier this week to show us all this cool stuff. So I also got to dismiss. I also got to do a video this week, which was super fun. I haven't done a video in a while where I'm actually like doing like tutorial style stuff. It mostly because it takes a team and it takes some time, but I have been working on this for a little bit, and I have a couple tips that I've learned that I wanted to share with other people. So I made this first video, first one in a while anyway, on how to make a microcontroller deep sleep. So I did basically back-to-back comparisons of regular sleep versus deep sleep with the exact same battery and the exact same setup. So I had a D1 Mini connecting to Wi-Fi and using Adafruit IO to log the battery level until it died, basically. So I charged both of them up, I got a battery level, and then I let them go. And the only difference is that one of them is using regular sleep and the other one is using deep sleep in between Wi-Fi check-ins. So, you know, connecting to Wi-Fi and sending data, that takes the same amount of power. But the sleeping period, that's where the power savings really kicks in. So I'm not gonna tell you the results of this. You should watch this 4-minute video. I'm sure you guys have time in your lives to double speed through it. However, this was a really fun experiment. So if you are working on an electronics project and you want to make whatever that thing is that you're making last for a lot longer, like a significant amount longer, again, I'm not gonna go through my results. You'll have to watch the video for that. But let's just say it definitely will make it last significantly longer if you implement this one trick that battery manufacturers don't want you to know. I don't know. It's just a thing that works very well, and you can do it in like a couple of lines of programming. The only thing that's funky about it is when you wake up a microcontroller from deep sleep, it's like you're basically restarting it from the beginning. So you have to write your code like a tiny bit differently because it has like, you can't just like have it like wake up in the middle of the code and resume what it was doing. But that one little restriction is not too bad, and it can be easily worked around. So check out this video if you want to see some new tips on microcontroller deep sleep. I had a lot of fun making it, and I'm planning on trying to make some more very soon. All right. So another thing I wanted to shout out is the Hope conference. I'm definitely going to be going to Hope, and it was a lot of fun. Last year, I got to do, well, not last year. The last time it ran, which was 2 years ago, I got to do some fun talks and workshops, and I'm looking forward to doing the same here. So if you haven't already, tickets for Hope are on sale, and it's one of my favorite conferences, especially in the US. It's probably in my top like 2 favorite conferences. So definitely check it out. It's located in New York, or Queens, specifically New York. And it's a lot of fun. A lot of really cool people there. Okay. I don't know if you've seen this, Kilian, but this like killed me when I saw it for the first time. I was looking at AP News and saw what I think is the first implementation of like mass like AI generated ads, where the majority of the content is no longer even stock photos. Like, I'm sorry, what is the reading on this man's reader, and why are his fingers so huge? Like, they're completely out of proportion to the rest of his body. Like, you know, like what's funny to me is this is the same prompt, but just expressed 2 different ways. So like the, you know, the paint on the walls different, and then there's like a nonsense clock here. But you can, and I don't even know if this is a valid reading for, you know, for this thing. But the message is this: basically, like, we have entered an age where the content you see online is just as likely to be AI generated than it is to be like organically generated, I guess I'll call it. So like the likelihood that you are looking at an ad that literally no other human has ever looked at because no human has ever interacted with it because it was generated specifically for you is like coming to a peak. And I think that you're also going to start to see these ads reflect your preferences. So you'll see the people in ads become more attractive and more tuned to your specific tastes over time until the people in the ads that you look at look completely different from the ads that other people look at. It's just really weird that there's so many like fake or artificial people now in like our timelines or in our news. I mean, like we're talking about like deep fakes, like in the upcoming election and other risks, like the fact that this has crept into mainstream advertising and is on like, you know, the Associated Press, like it's kind of concerning to me. Like this doesn't look like a photo. This is like pretty cartoonish and there's still errors enough that I can pick this out as AI, but this is going to be spreading everywhere. And I just want you to all take a breath and prepare yourself to never be sure ever again if what you're looking at online is real or AI generated, because it seems like that is where we are rapidly approaching.
I hate this. I hate everything about that. In fact, I'm going to specifically not get diabetes just so I don't have to see that stupid ad for the blood sugar tester. Yeah, he does have 3 hands, by the way. Someone on LinkedIn says that on the second picture.
Oh my gosh, look at he's gripping the pineapple here. His hand is both here and here. Oh my gosh, that's horrifying. So if you are if you're trying not to have nightmares about 3-handed men offering you like weird impossible pineapple watermelons while like laughing maniacally with too many fingers, then I'm sorry, but your time is up. All right. How about a palette cleanser? I know a lot of people are a fan of that like ThinkPad like nub, the like that red like nub that you press up and down. An implementation now of a dimmer where you can just put it in your wall. So if you're tired of your regular old light switch, you can go ahead and use the ThinkPad nub instead. Congratulations.
I love this. You're right. I have a ThinkPad with a nub on it, and it's fantastic.
All right. I'm almost through. I have to give a shout out. I think I mentioned this on the last stream, but one of the friends that we made at the C3 conference took a USB Nugget. So this is using an ESP32S2 and is connecting it to their door to call them every single time someone arrives at their front door. So they get a phone call on their deck phone that says like front door Nugget. And basically, oh my gosh, that's ringing in my ear so loud. And basically, yes, it calls and notifies them that somebody is at the front door. So I've never seen a Nugget make a phone call before. So this is kind of a new moment for me, but using the Nugget to monitor your front door is definitely an advancement in the science of what Nuggets can do. I have to say also, this is using CircuitPython. So usually when I see projects like this, it's using a compiled language like Arduino. This is so cool. And okay, sorry, I'm going to bring you back, chat. I'm not afraid of you. You deserve to be a part of the show. So yeah, like as far as interesting applications for like an easy to learn language, I have to give Lena a shout out. She's been making a lot of really cool stuff, and it was super awesome to meet her and see her do cool stuff with the Nugget at the Chaos Communication Conference. I have another Nugget photo that I'll have to say for next time because I don't think I have it handy. But one of our friends from the conference also fried the voltage regulator and soldered on a new one, but the pinout was totally different. So they used magnet wire to link the parts and then just wrapped it all in tape and stuck it on the back. I've never seen any Frankenstein thing like it, but it's truly incredible. So shout out to Nick for really making a crazy looking Frankenstein Nugget with like a ponytail and a voltage regulator at the end. It's quite something, and I will be reposting it soon. So without further ado, let's get into the news this week. We have a lot, and one of them is actually good. So I figured to kind of start with that. It was actually possible for a good amount of time for police to kind of just blanket request information on Ring cameras that were near a specific area without a warrant. So the usual process is if the police are interested in a particular piece of video, they obtain a warrant that proves that, you know, they actually need access to it for an investigation and it's not just blanket surveillance. Instead of that process of needing a warrant, Ring facilitated these requests and made it so it was super easy for police officers to just ask individual citizens without a warrant to turn over this video without much information about what it's needed for. So it's kind of just a, hey, we're investigating a crime in the area. Like, we need this video footage. Will you provide it to us? And then there's just a yes button. So predictably, a lot of people pressed yes. And this caused a lot of access to information that was maybe should have had a warrant involved. So the EFF joined with a number of other organizations to put pressure on Amazon to make it harder for police to request this information without a warrant. And finally, Amazon has complied with this. So that means that it's no longer going to be possible for police officers to request information about video footage directly from the Ring app, but it absolutely doesn't prevent them from just reaching out and asking them, one-on-one. So like being able to locate potential Ring cameras in the area, they can still do that. And if they want to reach out individually, they can absolutely still do so. However, it removes the automation component to this, which was kind of the problem, where it was so easy to request this information that frequently they were doing it more zealously than they should have, or without any clear connection to the case. So I see this as a victory for the increasing surveillance potential of these like Ring door cameras. They're theoretically for like private use, but as soon as they're offered up to law enforcement with easy access, they become a very, very tempting thing to just use by default in an investigation, when that might not actually be legal or like a good thing to do. So I'm pretty happy about this. I've seen some other opinions. Like, there was one person I saw on Twitter who was talking about how difficult it is to get information or get evidence in domestic violence cases, and that this would significantly hamper those sorts of investigations because they're so difficult anyway. So there's a lot of back and forth on this, and I understand both sides, but personally, I think it should be, at least like require a warrant in order to start mining information in an investigation, especially when it comes to video footage that's owned by private citizens. So in my opinion, this is definitely a win, but there's definitely some back and forth about this from people who are involved in gathering evidence for investigations. All right. Next up, this one is pretty crazy to me. A senator from Oregon apparently found out about this program and really didn't like it a couple of years ago. And finally, when it was declassified, was kind of starting to show the public how this information was being purchased and kind of the scope of this data and why he doesn't think it's a good idea. So I believe this is Ron Wyden.
Yeah.
I'm originally from Oregon, so that pleases me a bit. Said that this information was revealed to him, but he wasn't able to talk about it until recently. And now that it is available, the NSA has been buying up NetFlow data that can identify people that are using VPNs, supposedly like find information about malicious hacking infrastructure. But really, this is such a dragnet of information that it seriously strays into information that they would need specific legal oversight to collect about American citizens. So the argument here that the government is making is that if something is available on the market for sale, then it's legal for them to buy, even if they would need a warrant to collect that information in the first place otherwise. My counter argument would be that you can't really verify information that's bought from a third party, like it's third party. So by default, like it's like you can't use it as ground truth. So using it to make decisions maybe isn't the best idea.
Right.
So who knows? Like they refuse to disclose which vendors they are purchasing this information from, and by creating a market for the information, they're kind of incentivizing people to create it in the first place. So to me, this kind of seems like a circular argument. Like if you make funds available for this kind of data and then like say that it's fine for you to purchase it, vendors are going to offer up this data because you've just created a financial incentive for it. So like, I think this is like, in my personal opinion, I think this is a pretty like stupid hollow argument where like if you're not allowed to collect this information because it was found to be illegal, you can't just like go create an opportunity on the private market for people to fulfill it, especially if you're going to be using that data. Because like if that private company is breached, compromised, or collecting information in like an improper way, then like that poisons your entire pool of decision-making data. So like personally, I'm not very swayed by this argument, and I would prefer that NetFlow data require like specific safeguards to make sure that American citizens' information doesn't get swept up in it. This includes like religious affiliations, like health conditions, like other protected information that typically is very sensitive and wouldn't be considered eligible for a government agency to be like making a giant database that includes your information in it. So a lot of people are kind of surprised by how the government's laying this case out. They're like, listen, if we can buy it on the market, then it's legal for us to collect. Doesn't need a warrant, like even if it would need a warrant otherwise. So pretty shocking revelations. And again, like a pretty just like make a law about it. You know, you don't like it, make a law about it, because right now it's not illegal. That's kind of the argument that's being made here. So
I mean, my counter is, yeah, they should make a law about it. They should make it illegal to collect this information and sell it in general. Like, you know, they shouldn't be doing this. That's a massive invasion of privacy. I mean, it can't possibly be constitutional to do it.
And GDPR, like when I go to Europe and I have like all these pop-ups on my website, like informing me about my ability to delete data or restrict what companies are able to buy, sell, whatever, that's shocking to me because, you know, in most places in the United States, like we don't have any sort of control over our data commercially. And that's where this information's coming from.
Yeah, we have the constitutional right to privacy, you know, and to resist unreasonable search and seizure. Like, I'm surprised actually that this hasn't gone to the Supreme Court, because this seems, I'm not a lawyer obviously, but like this seems pretty clear from a layman's understanding. Like, this can't possibly be legal.
If you make it, they will come, says Ken GPT. Well, even if you are a GPT, Ken, that's pretty insightful. Like that's my opinion. Like I like and Kurt also mentions using taxpayer money to like create a market for buying data that includes American citizens' data. Like that seems a little like maybe we should have some sort of say in it if it's our information that's being collected and processed by the government for, you know, we don't know what, because it's a secret. So not super stoked about this one. Okay, so I think that this is the craziest technical story of the week, and I want to spend some extra time on it because I think it is wild. So iPhone apps have been abusing iOS push notifications to collect user data because iOS apps are restricted from running in the background if they are not in use. This is for performance and also to shut down like any sort of like tracking or whatever else like apps might be doing. So how do major apps manage to build a profile on you, and what kinds of tags can they use to start identifying you across the internet? Well, this is a fascinating story in that, and I have to say, like, I'm a big fan of Bleeping Computers reporting, as you can obviously tell, and this was one of my favorite stories I've read by them for a while. So also like some really great research on this. It is kind of so they used a proxying tool to look at the web requests that are going out every time you get a push notification and trying to figure out like what was going on here and why so much information was being exchanged. Now, as I said, Apple designed iOS to not allow apps to run in the background to prevent resource consumption and for better security. So there is an exception. There's a new system that allows apps to quietly launch in the background and process a new push notification before the device displays them to the user. So that's going to be something like decrypting the incoming payload, downloading like a thumbnail or additional information from the server to enrich it before it's sent to the user. So you can imagine, like, let's say you get an Instagram notification, it's going to like maybe include like a little thumbnail of the user who sent the push notification or something like that. That is something that the app is allowed to do in the background. Once the connection is done, then the app can be terminated again. So this is what we should see. We should see like a push notification come in, a second connection go out, like a network call that pulls down a thumbnail or something, and that's it. But that is not what is happening here. So instead, a lot of apps, and these are really big apps as well, abuse this feature to kind of be like a window of opportunity to transmit information about the user. And this allows them to build a fingerprint of that user across many different apps based on fingerprints of the device. So where's the video? Here we go. Here's the video. So I don't think there's just like music here. So I'm going to double speed this. And we're going to go through like what this does, because it is such an interesting like run through. So I already explained all this stuff. Yes. It'll pop up and all that. Chat, I love you, but I'm going to hide you so we can all see this a little bit better. All right. So no apps are running in the background. Oh, I'm gonna full screen this. All right. So we can see here that when the notification comes in for TikTok, and you clear the notification, it returns, basically it replies to the initial notification with a bunch of information about the user. So that's going to include, for example, the system uptime. So the system uptime is a big deal because that gives you a unique timestamp of exactly when that device was restarted last. So of all the personal identification that you can pull from this, one of the worst, I think, is the system uptime.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, so this is a TikTok notification. The next notification, all right, and the server now knows exactly when this device was rebooted last. So we have a notification from Facebook. We have another timestamp, and now these two apps could theoretically link the same user together if they were, for example, sharing user data, even if that data has been somewhat anonymized or they actually there's no specific identifier being sent to mark that device. Doesn't really matter because if you can use the system uptime combined with other fingerprints, you can pretty much figure out who is who, even as they use a number of different devices. So you can see in this case, we've got, I think for me, LinkedIn was like the biggest offender. There was a lot of stuff that it was sending. And one unplanned test here that I thought was interesting was Bing also sent a notification, and like it wasn't planned as part of the test, but it did the exact kind of like user tracking that these other features were taking advantage of. So they are, to be clear, they are not supposed to be doing this. This is basically working around the restrictions built into iOS to integrate a level of user tracking where if you are using notifications, it is basically like keeping track of when you like swipe away those notifications with basically that like you touching the screen, like that like heartbeat of like the user, like that is being transmitted directly back to the app, which can be then shared, and even that anonymized data can then be reconstructed back into some sort of activity, which is then sold, I guess, to the NSA. So can I share the link to this video? Yeah, no, absolutely. I would love to do that, actually. Can I? Is this the share button? Yes, it is. I'll drop it in the chat, but also you just saw it and it's here. So here you go. Here you go, everyone. That was my favorite like technical investigation of the week, like learning how this process works. For one, made me a little bit concerned about the way that like, I, for example, use different apps and stuff. Like I actually accidentally turned on do not disturb mode and then like never turned it back off. Like nothing sends me notifications. So I just got a new phone and I was just like, okay, maybe I won't do it this time. And I'm just like, it's just like staring into the sun for me. There's so many notifications and like I hate it. But now knowing that those notifications are also an opportunity for potentially the device to call back, like this was focused specifically on iOS, but I would have to say, like, I would be shocked if there's not a similar process going on, with Android. So if people wonder, where does all this like device information come from? Like, where is the NSA getting all this data about like everything I do? Well, like by using apps on a regular basis and having them employ kind of dirty tricks like this, it makes it super easy for them to build a profile on you and start scraping together that data into a very invasive picture, which is, I guess we call NetFlow. So NetFlow data. So yeah, that kind of, I think that it's elegant that these two stories are like together on this particular on this particular like episode, because one of them kind of explains the presence of the other. All right, so next up, another cryptocurrency focused crime. Who could guess? Oh, and here's a question: do you daily drive an Android or an iPhone? Kilian, what about you? What do you got?
Android all day.
Yeah, me too. I just like, I do too many like Wi-Fi and like other things, and not being able, for example, to go war driving on my own device, that is a deal breaker for me. But yeah, it's a good question. Next question is always like, do we like jailbreak our Android phone? And for me, the answer is going to be no. Like I have an iPhone that I don't care, or like an Android phone I don't care about jailbreaking. Like I feel free to mess with that one, but my daily driver, like I wouldn't make it so that somebody like getting access to it could immediately run something as root. It just, it's not a good idea for me.
Yeah, it introduces so much unnecessary risk. Like, and I mean, we talk about it how much personal data, sensitive data lives on one of these devices. That's just inviting trouble.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree. And the other follow-up question is, do you think the iPhone is more secure, or do you think it's just how you set it up? I would say it is how you set it up. Like I've experienced all different levels of setup security. So like I have
Mhm.
one of my devices enrolled in like Google's like advanced protection for like journalists, and I can't even go to an HTTP website. Like it has to be HTTPS. So like imagine I want to like log into my router and I can't because Chrome is protecting me. Like
Right.
that is, that's kind of the compromise between like extreme levels of security. So
Hmm.
iOS also has lockdown mode, but who wants to live in lockdown mode unless you absolutely have to because people are like
Right.
attacking you. So there are levels of security you can ramp up, and I think that it is totally dependent on what level of security like you're using. Lockdown mode, like some of these other more restrictive modes, are obviously going to make your phone less usable, but they'll make them far more resistant to attacks. It all depends on how paranoid you are and
Hmm.
how much performance you want to sacrifice to lock a device down. Um, Here's a question: how much time should be given to being proficient in Python? I really think that like Python and Bash are my two favorite. We got to make it work in 10 minutes. Like, what can we
Hmm.
do? Languages. Whereas like C++ and like other languages are more for like, all right, let's make a plan and make this work
Right.
really well. So if you're I would say like spending a good amount of time being clever in Python and Bash are two things that I think will pay absolute dividends in like
Hmm.
cybersecurity and being able to like roughly like patch them together all fast. Like I think for languages that are beginner friendly and like proof of concept friendly, like Python's the one you want to spend some time on. Okay, let's go on to, oh wait, no, I haven't even finished the story. Yeah, so okay, let's talk about what's going on. So Trenzor, which makes wallets for cryptocurrency, apparently had a data breach which is affecting people by having scammers reach out to them and do a pretty convincing job pretending to be Trenzor, requiring authentication for a new firmware update. This
Hmm.
firmware update does not exist. It is simply to trick people into giving away their recovery seed. Like they say over and over and over, you're never supposed to give this away, but people continue to get tricked by it. It's a
Hmm.
24-word phrase they use for setting up the wallet. And here you can see an example of one of the scams that has been going out to people who are involved in this data breach. So obviously giving away your seed phrase allows the attacker to access the wallet and drain their cryptocurrency, which would be a terrible thing. So obviously, if you are a Trenzor customer, you are now at increased risk of having someone reach out to you and very convincingly attempt to get you to give away your secret key. So don't do that. Don't give away your secret key. That's all I can really tell you. All right. Next up, we've seen a couple of different water treatment or other critical infrastructure companies be targeted by ransomware and other cyber attacks in the last couple of weeks. And this is another one hitting the news. Not totally clear what has been affected here aside from billing. So obviously that's not
Hmm.
water treatment. That's not, like water supply. Like that's back ends like customer stuff. And while that
Yeah.
is unfortunate, it's definitely fortunate that, like wastewater treatment and water delivery was not impacted. But we're seeing an increase in these sorts of attacks because these sorts of critical infrastructure, they have a big incentive to pay. But of course,
Right.
the risk here is also that if you attack these, the U.S. federal government tends to go after you in a big way. So not totally clear who the attacker was here, as this happened pretty recently, and no one has claimed responsibility. But it still seems as though that this is yet another example of a company involved in critical infrastructure who is definitely not off the table when it comes to cyber attack. All right, next up we've got. So this is I I keep learning about like the cybercrime like economy, I guess. And like
Yeah.
one thing I was not totally aware of was the traffic direction services, I believe it was calling it. Yeah,
Hmm.
sorry, traffic distribution services. Killian, had you heard of this before?
I don't know much about it. It's a fairly new area for me. Not exactly my area of expertise.
Yeah. I here's also we have a comment. What's the best crypto if I don't want any traces on me? I believe that crypto means cryptozoology. And as James explains, this is not my area of expertise. Let's just say that. I don't think it's real. But some people don't believe that Bigfoot is real. So, like each to their own. So, okay, let's explain what a traffic distribution system is and why this is related to cybercrime. So let's say I am a malicious actor and I want to send phishing attacks against a whole bunch of users. But if I just set up like, phishing cybercrime.info, then the first person who realizes that this is an attack is going to flag my infrastructure and I have to start all over again. All that work I set up, I use setting up the infrastructure is gone and I'm back to square one. So what these traffic distribution systems do is protect malicious infrastructure by filtering and redirecting like malicious activity all across a giant network of compromised websites. In this case, 70,000 sites. So whoever this is would basically set up these services on compromised websites to redirect users, or maybe like create, like unlisted websites that like they can link people to. And that way, when investigators are trying to shut down the infrastructure of this attack network, operators are able to do a couple things. One, they can hide their really good stuff or distribute it across a distribution network that makes it hard to take down. And the second is they can frustrate investigators by making it so that only specific targets are able to access the malicious content. And that's really the value here that a lot of different organizations get from this. So it's not just cybercrime, like affiliate marketing and other things will use this sort of like distribution, but a lot of it is scams and other stuff that would be taken down by any legitimate business. So like, how do you serve malicious ads? Well, things like this can fingerprint a browser, make sure that it's the right type of browser, and then deliver malicious content or just dump it back onto a random website, depending on what it finds. So it's going to try to identify, investigators, researchers, and it's going to try to like basically serve them nothing while saving the malicious content for people it vets as a legitimate victim. So I've seen this before. Like I've gotten a phishing text, and then when I open it in a desktop, it doesn't, like the website goes to like homedepot.com. But when I open it in a mobile browser, it suddenly takes me to like a phishing website, but only once. If I try to open it a second time, then it drops me back, somewhere innocuous. So like it tries to protect its infrastructure as best it can by limiting how many times each victim can go to the real phishing site. And then also like sussing out anything that might indicate that it's not a real victim. Like if I send an SMS and it gets opened up by a browser, maybe an indication that the victim is smarter and is trying to figure out what's going on instead of just opening it from their phone. So pretty wild. It's pretty crazy. All right. So a Russian TrickBot malware developer was sentenced to 64 months in prison. We've seen a lot of developers and people and like affiliates be sentenced to prison for their roles in cybercrime, but developers are usually the ones kind of sitting on top of these organizations because they make the stuff. Affiliates are the ones that actually go out and take the risk. So seeing a malware developer being taken down is a little bit of a rarity. Usually it's the affiliates that are getting popped. So this is a 40-year-old who was one of the people who oversaw the development of the malware browser's injection component. And I guess they were arrested while trying to leave South Korea after being stuck there for a year due to COVID-19 restrictions and an expired passport. Just have to say, if you're an international like malware like developer, then like perhaps like you should restrict your travel to like Russia. But again, interesting to see some of these developers actually be brought to justice, because it's not usually the developers that are getting significant jail time. It's the syndicates that use their stuff that actually tend to get caught. All right, next up. So this is a bit of an interesting story. Ukraine is saying that it wiped 2 petabytes of data from a Russian research center, but it doesn't appear to be like a like military center. It seems to be the Russian Center for Space Hydrometeorology. So like, like tit for tat, going back and forth. Like I get it. But it looks like, okay, I guess according to this, like it does have some civil, like military, civil aviation, agriculture, and maritime, like sector involvement. So yeah, I guess just kind of going after any like government affiliated agencies at this point. But just yeah, I think that we've seen the story each week now of either like Russia attacking like Ukrainian telecommunication companies, or like Ukrainian responses to this. So this seems to be another one of those strikes in the escalating back and forth on like in terms of like cyber warfare. Okay, so this one, not a ton of details coming out about this yet, but it
Right.
was noted in the news that apparently HP Enterprise had some of their information accessed by Russian threat actors, and they are not the only one.
Yeah.
Microsoft also had a data breach involving this same group, and it seems as though the information access was specifically tied towards their cybersecurity organization and some of the other people who would be making cybersecurity decisions at those companies. So kind of an interesting and focused attack because we're not seeing like malware, or any sort of like ransomware executed here. We're more seeing surveillance, intelligence, and like theft of information about potentially these companies' security postures,
Right.
or maybe even cybersecurity, related to their devices, something like that. So no one really knows what these attacks were focused on. They appear to be Russian, like government-aligned attacks that are gathering information about the
Right.
way these organizations conduct their security. So obviously that could be a precursor to another attack or some sort of supply chain thing. Nobody knows, but it's interesting to note the targeting of these government aligned ATPs and or APTs, sorry, and like what types of information they're interested in when they enter an organization.
Yeah, that definitely very interesting. The large ones, and again, but from a more corporate standpoint, it's interesting that we see these coming out because Microsoft disclosed their breach based on the new rules that just went into effect about disclosure. So it's interesting to see more of this hitting the news, and I wonder if this happens a lot more than we would kind of suspect. But again, based on the new regulations that just went into effect, we're going to see a lot more transparency, maybe.
Yeah, the SEC filings
Yeah.
are, in my opinion, really good. Like they give us some transparency into how these breaches happen, and companies are so invested in making sure that the reputational damage isn't that bad that they often
Hmm.
don't like to talk about these details that are useful for defenders. Like, what are the
Right.
vulnerable points? Where are attackers going? And where are the highest skilled and best
Hmm.
funded attackers focusing their efforts? Like, we have more information now about that because of the requirements for these SEC filings. So
Hmm.
I am firmly in favor of them. And I think that, like you said, they increase
Yeah,
transparency and help defenders understand what they're up against.
absolutely.
All right, next up, another fintech company. We've been seeing like mortgage lenders and other people involved in like lending and mortgage, that
Hmm.
sort of thing, being targeted by ransomware groups. And this is now a global fintech firm, Equilend, which I had never heard of it before, but I guess it was started by a global consortium of banks and took a number of its operations offline after a cyber attack on Monday. Of course, it is currently unknown what the scope of the cyber attack is, whether it involves exfiltration or if it involves any data deletion, or if they simply, as they said, detected unauthorized access
Hmm.
um, and then took things offline. We don't really
Yeah.
know.
Right.
But at this point, it does look like another fintech company has been targeted, which is in line with several of the attacks we've seen in the last several months. These appear to be, like critical targets that don't really rise to the level of like critical infrastructure that gets you like heavily investigated. So threat
Hmm.
actors seem to be finding kind of a sweet spot in the fintech mortgage and loans industry as
Right.
something that is profitable to attack, but not considered to be such an egregious attack that the whole US government is going to mobilize because you potentially like cut off water to some town.
Hmm.
All right, almost done. I think we got two more. So this is every time I see Panda Own, I know that there's going to be a lot of interesting stuff. This is taking place in Tokyo alongside a big automotive conference, and so far 1.3 million dollars have been doled out for 49 zero days,
Nice.
including several with Tesla. So yeah, just there's always an incredible amount of skill on display at Panda
Hmm.
Own. And I guess the focus on this was specifically like automotive technology, which is great.
Hmm.
I have seen this name now a number of times. Team Synactive, they have been kind of dominating the Panda Own conference, both in Toronto and then also here. So it's cool to see them at the top again, especially making $450,000. Um, but yeah, I would say if you're interested in car hacking, this is the conference to check out. There is a lot of really cool stuff coming out of it. Vendors have 90 days to fix their stuff after 0 days are disclosed at the conference. And it seems as though this is one of the premier places where people can come, demonstrate a vulnerability, get recognized, and then also make a bunch of money. So yeah, I have to say, this is one of my favorite conferences to see results from. I'm going to have to make it to one of these at some point, because of all the conferences I see, that the most technical, actionable stuff seems to come out of this particular conference.
Yeah, this is cool.
All right. We've also got more information on the 23andMe data breaches. This was facilitated by a feature that allowed people to share information with each other, and anybody who had this enabled could have been impacted by this credential stuffing attack. It seemed to affect a lot of people in the UK, and then just like a lot of specific genetic information that was shared included raw phenotype data. So that means information that could be processed into more insights about that person's health, ancestry. It's a lot of information. So matching DNA segments, specifically where on your chromosomes you and your relative have matching DNA, self-reported location, ancestor, birth and family names, profile picture, for facial recognition. Are you kidding me? Yuck. Birth year and anything else included in your profile's introduce yourself section. So this data scrape is gross and devastating. It contains lots of information that's going to impact people's privacy for the foreseeable future. This information has popped up in a number of places now, and a bunch of lawsuits are kicking off in regards to this, because this is about as personal information as you can really get. Like, what else do you have that's unique to you if not your fingerprints and your genetic code? So I just have to say, this is one of the worst data breaches I've seen in a while. I mean,
it's
like
bad,
you can reset your password, but what are you going to do about your matching DNA segments? Like,
right.
Good luck.
I think that part of the problem has just been handled so poorly, like across the board. It's certainly a lesson in how to not deal with this.
Yeah. Like the way that this has been rolled out, and the fact that we're still finding out how bad this breach was, is definitely an argument for transparency, both for the people who are involved in this breach, and then for people who are just trying to find out like what is going on and what they need to watch out for. I honestly think this data breach, in my opinion, is unprecedented and unprecedented in terms of the data, the scale of the data, and the type of data that was released. Like having people's genetic information scraped and I guess just released on the scale, as far as I've seen, has never happened before. So like, I don't know that you'd ever been able to buy someone's like so many people's genetic information on the darknet, but that is now a thing. Technically, you can have your DNA altered, kind of risky. Yeah, that's true. Okay, James, if you wanna, get a bunch of like uranium and like curl up around it every night to change your DNA, like I'm sure you can do that, but is your quality of life going to be good after that? Is it worth it? DJ says, Snack says, you wouldn't download a human being. Well,
I know somebody who likes the early 2000s DVD primers or whatever it was.
All right, so our final story today comes from Germany in a court case I am sincerely hoping is going to be overturned. So this has a chance of causing a chilling effect on cybersecurity researchers after a researcher was taking a look at an IT problem and found a exposed credential, which they were able to use to access services beyond the scope of what they were supposed to be able to use. So in spite of the fact that the company who asked to pursue legal action against them, had left this password in plain text for anyone to see, it was still considered to be an illegal act, and they were fined €3,000, which is apparently 3,265 American dollars, which to me is pretty shocking. Normally these sorts of things, especially when there's no damage done and like the incident is reported, it's understood that this is for the greater good and that we have a job that requires us to do this a lot. Obviously there's guidelines where we're not supposed to take things to a point that's like too far out of scope. But if you're using the software, your business relies on it, you have a license for it, and then you're trying to find out why it's not working, and in the scope of this investigation, you uncover this, I feel like it's pretty a normal thing to do, to turn it in and then report it. So again, this is being appealed. I sincerely hope that this is reversed, because it's quite unusual to see a security researcher being targeted legally for doing something that did not benefit them in any financial way, that did not impact services at the company in any way, and basically kind of seemed like it's the bad of the company for having lax security procedures, and also having a problem with their product that this person was trying to debug. So the judge had cited a 2000 legislation amendment on hacking, emphasizing that the protection of a system doesn't need to be robust to warrant an offense. So basically the argument was any sort of password, even one encoded in plain text, counts as protection, and thus it was considered to be unauthorized access. Of course, the argument being that if the password's included in plain text, then like it's not really a password, is it? It's more like, you know, it's more of like a default login, which is disclosed to the user. But I guess we'll see what happens. I think that like a secret password is kind of key to the whole concept of like a locked or a secured system. If you, for example, print the password as admin on your thing, is that a protected system anymore? That's kind of the arguments happening here. A lot of people would say yes, a lot of people would say no. So that is what kind of remains to be seen here. But any court case I see impacting security researchers, especially like that could cause a chilling effect on research in general, I get a bit concerned about. And Germany has some pretty far-reaching laws when it comes to this stuff. I wasn't aware that, did you know that German security researchers can't do port scans?
I actually didn't know that.
Touching ports is a crime.
That's like, I mean, that's basic. That's not even like,
yeah. So if like, okay, so here's a question: if they are a legit researcher, am I a legit researcher, my friend? Like, what who is the governing board of researchers? Because like, if you're only defining academic researchers, then like, we've got a bunch of very, very smart nerds like bouncing off the walls in like the Varonis like threat labs department who would beg to differ. Like there is a lot of researchers who are not backed by like an academic institution, and a lot of these researchers are either independent, like this is what they do, like you know, as a contractor, or it's something that they do in their spare time. And that's the thing, is like, who's a journalist? Who decides? You know, is there like because it's a slippery slope, you know, like some people are doing excellent work and they're not backed by a newsroom, and other newsrooms are doing terrible work and sending people to do garbage. So as an independent security researcher, I would take a light amount of exception to being called a legit researcher or a not legit researcher. If you're doing research and you're doing it within the scopes of like ethics, I consider you to be a security researcher. Whether you are cited with like in research papers with a bunch of accomplishments, or if you release tools to the community, that's where it kind of starts to go into like, are you a contributing are you contributing researcher? And that's, for me anyway, my baseline for like, if I'm going to treat you as like a peer researcher, are you contributing to the community? Are you making proof of concepts? Are you fixing things and like sharing it with other people? And are you, you know, involved in bettering the things that you're working on? That's really the cutoff for me. So unfortunately, I don't think this person was like affiliated with like a university or something, because most people aren't. Most people, in fact, a lot of people that are doing cybersecurity research are outside the academic institution. So just wanted to clear up that misconception, because a lot of people have asked me, since my job title is security researcher, like, oh, like what research institution are you with? I'm like, my own self. Because a lot of the Wi-Fi stuff I've done has been sitting on like a subway in Los Angeles, like running like wireless captures and like analyzing the data and making insights based on that, and then submitting it to the community and sharing my tools. So could I get in trouble in that for doing that in Germany? Probably. And I actually, again, didn't realize that it was illegal to do port scans until I was just like, why is Shodan so popular in Germany? And one of the hackers there was like, oh, yeah, we can't just like do a port scan. That's considered like, you know, like the precursor to an attack. We have to use Shodan to let them do the scan and then access it and get the exact same information. Maybe so because there was a commercial solution available, like a workaround, like, you know, like people with a little bit of money are able to get around this problem. But still, it's shocking to me that, you know, at least in some countries, like some of this very basic foundational research work is considered to be illegal. In the United States, if you got packets flying around on a frequency you're allowed to listen to and they're unencrypted, those packets are yours to sniff. In some other countries, that might not be the case. And that is confusing to my American brain.
That's definitely weird. I mean, I think it really has to come down to intent. You know what I mean? Because, and the other thing too is the thing that's funny there is, I guess, you know, the stick is that, you know, they could prosecute you for it, but if you're going to do malicious activity anyways, you're not going to care. So who are you really hindering? Like you said, that chilling effect. So it's very strange. The argument just doesn't pass the logical sniff test.
If you're published in Twitter, you're legit. Yeah, I have to say, like, it's funny because I don't consider myself to be much of a programmer, but this website called Kitploit that shares a lot of like up and coming cybersecurity tools with like very little filtering has featured me like 4 times. So, and my GitHub repository, which is terrible, has like hundreds of stars. So like, it's funny, like what makes you like legit. I've written a bunch of garbage code, but I contribute constantly to the community, and therefore I'm like legit, even though as a programmer, I am terrible. So it's kind of a free for all out there. Don't feel like you're not contributing or that you can't be prosecuted for hacking just because you're an amateur. Like you can be out there doing hard hitting research and setting legal precedents all by yourself as a private citizen forced to pay a 3,000 euro fine. If you want to support that researcher, then I would. It sounds like they were just doing what most of us would do when working with a service that has problems. So yeah. I thought it was being published in the academic journal. I'm probably wrong. So everybody has their own definition. That's the thing. People in academia probably want you to pay for a degree so that they can tell you that you're only a researcher if you are publishing in academic journals. However, random people with anime avatars on GitHub regularly drop 0-day vulnerabilities that shake the very foundation of the security world. So if you're telling me that like these researchers who just like drop 0 days out of nowhere because they just like focus on this day and night and they're like really good at it. If you're telling me that those people are not researchers and like people who publish academic, like it's just 2 different types of people, like you have the people that go through academia and they're publishing like pie in the sky, like not pie in the sky, but like largely theoretical attacks. And then people who publish a proof of concept that like breaks like all the computers in Western Europe, like those are the types of people that are doing really like crazy research. And I'm somewhere in the middle of those 2, like I work with academics, like I read academic papers, turn them around and turn them into proof of concepts. But that's really like it's where people make real world proof of concepts and things that work in the real world on one side, and then the academics like pushing the boundaries of what's theoretically possible on the other. Both research is valid, and you'll find that the researchers who work at, for example, Varonis Threat Labs, like they're not submitting papers to academic whatever because they've been told to shut up about the things they have because they're so nasty that they need to be fixed, before they can be discussed. So I would say no. Like I would not consider the definition of a researcher to be someone who publishes academically. I would say like 75% of people I would consider to be researchers literally can't publish the stuff that they find. Or when they do publish it, again, it's just a dirty proof of concept dropped on GitHub that changes the world. So yeah, like everybody can contribute. There's a lot of people who go to school for it, and then there's a lot of people who just wake up one day and decide to kill a computer. So one way or another. All right. So great discussion today. Want to thank everyone for dropping in the chat, even though we're a little later than usual. I enjoy it. I think we get more people on these kind of like later streams. So Kilian, thank you for hanging out with us on the stream. People were getting worried, we needed to make sure you're okay. And if you didn't get your question answered, make sure to join us on Wednesday when I'm going to be doing the Q&A stream. You can also jump in the Discord. I will drop the link in the chat. If you want to post some questions I can respond to, or of course you can just go on the SecurityFWD channel and leave your comment on this video, especially if you're watching the replay, and I'll make sure it gets answered on Wednesday. And per always, I got to give a big shout out to Varonis for letting us do the stream every week. They have decided to invest in the community, and that's why I get to talk with all of you every week, sharing the best of security news, sharing our insights on security tools, and having guests on. So if you like the stream, if you wanted to keep going, you can go to varonis.com/Kody. That's Kody. They do check to see how many people are checking it out every week, and it's a free way you can support the stream and let everyone know that you like to see it. So I will see all of you next week. Have a good weekend, everyone, especially you, Kilian.
You too. Take care. Appreciate it.
Bye, everyone.